physical activity and a lot of like working like with different people, like cross disciplinary sector when it comes to like human expeditions. I'm not expert in that, so we're going to hear directly from Dr. Mares and how this story can actually inspire you to pursue your own career dreams as well. So without wasting much time, I'm going to ask Dr. Maria to share her screen. And yes, we'll get on with the session for today. Just as a bit of housekeeping rules, if you have any question while she's still speaking, please just send your question to the chat box, and you can keep your question. You can ask your question after she's done speaking. Try to keep your questions as brief as possible so that we can finish within the time. Dr. Maris is currently in the outdoors in the mountain. I want her to get home safely. We don't want to keep her outdoors too much. So just make the questions short as well. We'll be very, very happy to have you interact in today's session. So that'll be all from my end. Thank you so much, Dr. Maris. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you, Nelly, and thank you to the team at Space Hubs Africa for having me. Yeah, I'm warmly bundled up here in South Africa in the mountains, so the signal seems so far so good. So bear with me. I have some videos and some stories to share. And perhaps while I share my screen, if anybody has any thoughts on their mind or any questions they want to type in the chat, if I have time while I'm talking, I can check the chat. So feel free to type anything there. Starting from now, go for it. Tell me where you are. I'm in the Karoo part of South Africa, in the mountains just north of the Cape. Yeah, so let me know where you are, what you're doing, what you're thinking about, and I look forward to a discussion after the presentation. But yeah, let me share my screen so long. And hope that the technology is working with us. So how is that? Can everybody see my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, looks pretty good from my end.
Perfect. All right. So I'm sure the people who have joined here today, I'm still looking for your chats to tell me who you are and where you are, but I assume there's some interest in space, but if not, then we're going to get interested. But I think we all face the unknown, and I decided to make the central focus of the presentation today on the unknown, because we all have many motivations for our love for space. And as humans, I think we are all facing the unknown all of the time. Greetings to Kenya and Ghana, Precious and Barima, how's it? Hello. I think we all face the unknown, but space is a particularly strong example of the unknown. Ethiopia also. So let me take you on a brief journey through the history of my story and my participation in space, and a bit about my background. So I thought we'd start with a little bit of quantum physics, because I am a quantum physicist by training. So especially equation 1.26 is going to be quite important for the exam that we're going to have at the end. And your results for the quiz are going to be posted on the website. No, I'm joking. Okay, this is a joke slide. We are not going to go too much into calculations today. It is already 6 p.m. here, so you guys can relax. In fact, to start off, I have a video. So let's go back to 2015. I don't know if you heard about the Mars One project. So in 2016, 100 people were shortlisted to go to Mars on a one-way trip. Now, I was one of these people. There were 6 Africans, 1 from Nigeria, 1 from Kenya, and 4 from South Africa. And the 100 of us were supposed to travel to Mars on a one-way trip when 2024. So this is why I will show you this video, just to remind us of the Mars One project, which is declared bankruptcy. But let's go back to the spirit of 2016, when these 100 people and the public audience, in fact, in general around the world, was anticipating imminent one-way trips to Mars to establish the first off-world settlement beyond Earth. But the video says more than me, and these Hardy does. So let's skip to the video. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
Yeah, it's good.
I want to go to Mars not just to be a part of history, but to inspire people around the world.
The colonization of Mars is the adventure of the century.
This is our chance to get the world excited about space again.
If we can look up from Earth and know that human beings are living on another planet, will we ever again be able to tell ourselves that there's anything we can't do?
I want to contribute directly to mankind's confident expansion into the solar system, which we have to do if we're going to survive in the long term.
I believe it is in our nature and it is our destiny.
I want, after I die, the impact of my life is imparted upon those who follow.
I know it comes at the cost of living Earth forever, but future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
So this was an exciting time, especially for the 100 of us, the extraordinary humans who heard about the project and volunteered and were shortlisted amongst the 100 humans shortlisted to go to live on the planet Mars. So unfortunately, the Mars One project did declare bankruptcy in 2019, and we'll return to the journey of humans from Earth off-world into the stars in a moment. But to explain my passion for space, and I think to explain humans' fascination with the unknown, which I find to be an extremely alluring place. So the allure of the unknown is something that I associate. So it draws you, it attracts you. And when we look up at the night sky, I think that is one of the most mysterious and attractive places that we can look at. And it really represents the unknown. So I think human curiosity is at the heart of who we are as humans. We ask questions, we explore to try and understand those questions. And for me and for many of us, especially children, asking where we come from is one of the most fundamental questions that we can ask. So to talk about my interest in space, let's start in the beginning and look at the Big Bang. So did you know that 10% of your body is as old as the universe? Almost as old as the universe. So after 380,000 years after the Big Bang, so in the early days of the universe, the very first atoms were formed. And when these neutral particles were created, light was emitted, and that comes through to Earth today. At the moment, while we're sitting wherever we are on the surface of the Earth, the cosmic microwave background is radiating through us. And when we look at it and measure it, we can see that hydrogen was formed around 380,000 years after the Big Bang, so almost 14 billion years ago. And when we look at our human bodies, we are more than half water. Water is obviously H2O, and that hydrogen is not produced in significant amounts in any other process. So the hydrogen that forms the water, that forms more than half of your body, in fact, originates from the Big Bang itself, from the formation of the first atom soon after the formation of the universe. So this is a theme I will return to. And I think it's extremely beautiful and extremely profound that when we look on the deepest level of quantum physics and of our investigations of the history of the universe, we find that we are one with the universe. As far down as the fundamental particles that make up our bodies, we are very much in the universe, and the universe is very much in us. And science has shown us this beauty. So starting from the Big Bang, let's go a bit further to the formation of the first galaxies. And in fact, the Milky Way galaxy is one of the oldest in the universe. And this image, which comes in different formats, different color schemes, let's say you may have seen before. This is one of the first images produced by the Meerkat Telescope Array in South Africa, which is a precursor to the Square Kilometre Array radio telescope, which is under construction in Australia. South Africa will be contributing, as well as 8 other African partner states. And together, this will be the world's leading radio telescope, furthering in resolution and sensitivity, and in the time it takes to analyze signals. It will be the state of the art, so the best radio telescope that humans have ever built. So we're really proud to have already produced our precursor array, the Meerkats, in South Africa, which took this most highly resolved image of the center of the Milky Way galaxy that has ever been taken. So that bright light in the center is the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And what we see here are star formation regions and star supernova remnants. So the birth and death of stars are visible in this image, and researchers will be analyzing this image in detail for decades to come. But in fact, when we look at the origin of the universe 14 billion years ago, the Milky Way was one of the first galaxies to have formed. If we fast forward a bit to our sun is not one of the oldest stars in the universe. At around 4.6 billion years old, our star is a relative newcomer. But we're zooming in from the edge of the universe to the Milky Way galaxy to our sun. Our sun certainly powers life on Earth, and power or energy is a theme I'll come back to, which I've indicated with a symbol. But basically, our life on Earth here has been powered by the sun for the past 4 billion years. Another critical element for the world that we find ourselves in is water, and all known life that we have ever investigated or discovered or detected requires H2O for survival. So our planet, again, is home to life because of our oceans that cover 71% of the surface of our planet. Now, I don't want to be too trivial by representing life with food, but life feeds life. Organic molecules are necessary for humans, for animal life, for plant life, for microbial life. All of us rely on each other for nutrients, for sustenance. Life is really an interconnected web. And the planet Earth is not only the only planet we know of that hosts life, but it is teeming with life. What just 1 milliliter of water contains millions of species of microbes. We can even see life from space. Looking at this image here, we can see the green, which represents the photosynthetic belts, which maintain our temperature, our pressure, our atmosphere, and indeed all life, which is interconnected here on our planet. So zooming in even further, when we look inside all of the living systems on Earth, we see this molecule discovered in the 1950s or structurally resolved in the 1950s. Information is contained in DNA, this molecule that enables the continuity of life by passing information from parents onto offspring. And again, we look at the commonality of what life requires, and that's really power, water, nutrition, and information. And we're going to come back to these topics when we think about life, wherever in the universe we may be thinking about it. But this is what we've discovered so far on Earth in terms of what life needs and in terms of investigating the reality that we find around ourselves. So we know that Earth hosts life, but one of the big questions that has excited researchers is there life beyond Earth? And just to show that I've been thinking about these things for quite some time, that is in fact me on the right at high school in Standard 7. grade 9. So in 1997, I was around 14 years old at the time. That's my friend Sarah, and we built this paper mache. We didn't have fancy robotics back in the day. We barely had internet back in 1997. So this was our project. We built some renewable energy models with our wind turbines there and our solar panels and our crops and a volcanic crater. So I have been thinking about not only looking for potential life on Mars, but also establishing life on Mars for quite some time. So let's go back to the beginning in some sense. We've gone to the beginning of the universe. But what are the beginnings of our endeavors in space, and how are those going to help us see where we are going? Excuse the beautiful Hardy-Dars singing sunset. So if we go back to 1957, that was the first satellite that was launched by the USSR at the time, Sputnik. Now, this was an extremely revolutionary phenomenon to know that there's a human technology orbiting around Earth. I mean, it wasn't long before we sent Laika the dog and then humans into space next. But in terms of the technology, I wanted to focus a bit on the satellite technology. So first satellite, 1957. First solar-powered satellite, 1958. So back in the 50s, global warming or climate change was not a big focus for humanity. And so the development of solar-powered technologies was fueled largely by the space industry. So obviously burning fossil fuel beyond Earth is not feasible for a bunch of reasons. And so we owe our current state-of-the-art sophistication of solar-powered technology to a large extent to the space industry, where we've been developing such technologies for over 50 years. So Vanguard 1 was the first Soviet solar-powered satellite, just 1 year after the first satellite was launched. When we look at water and air purification, so the first systems developed both by the US and by the Soviets at the time, we're looking at not launching fresh water from Earth for all of the requirements of people living in space, because the first Apollo cruise obviously went to the moon in the 60s and 70s. But since the 70s, we've had space stations, largely Russian or Soviet at the time, space stations. And when we have crew living in orbit, purifying water to reuse it is extremely important. And also accessing oxygen from the water molecule is extremely important. This is a picture of the current system in the ISS. But the first purification systems were already developed in the 1960s. Again, this was not a time where people on Earth were worrying about water purity and water distribution and water security. This was kind of before that. And so many of our water filtration technologies, etc., we can relate back to our activities in space because of the need to recycle water. I mean, if you imagine launching a kilogram of water from Earth can cost up to $1 million. So purifying water is one of the objectives if you are going to have crew beyond Earth. So the first plant was already grown in space in 1982. This was in one of the Soviet space stations. This plant that was grown again in many different experiments because of its quick lifetime period has been a lot of data towards, of course, growing food for people living in space. So not only the water that you purify in space is necessary, but the light. So LED lighting for agriculture in closed environments has also been developed to a large extent by the space industry. So we're running through the themes here of power, water, food, and finally communication systems. And I think most people, when thinking about space, would think about communication systems. And this is a great video of the number of satellites increasing from the first satellite, which I've mentioned now, up to today. And I was already shocked to see that I adjusted the slide from January. There were around 8,000 active satellites. And in the last 6 months, another 2,000 active satellites have been added to that. So we are really seeing a massive amount of launches of satellites that are both making our lives more convenient, but also adding to the space debris issue, which we will need to address, which I'm not going to go into too much detail now. But it is incredible to see our development just over the past just over 50 years in terms of how much technology we now have orbiting our planet. And this is really our gateway to space, right? We may not be living on the moon or Mars yet, but certainly Earth orbit has become a place where humans are to be found. And we have now 24 years of continuous occupation of the International Space Station. and more diverse crews, we are happy to see lately. Of course, still a handful of countries are operating and active in these space stations, so we hope to see that continuously extending. But this is the current state of the art for human space exploration. We should be proud to have over 2 decades of continuous occupation of Earth orbit, but this is only 400 kilometers away. So what's next? So this is a bit of a summary of our activity on the moon, starting with the first technology missions by the USSR in the 60s, all the way up to, of course, the Apollo missions with the crew. That's numbers 8 to 16. Then I've added on a few here. So India, number 23, came in 2023, the closest to the South Pole. So that's like 70 degrees south. And then in January 2024, the Japanese mission was the most accurate landing ever. I think they came within a few hundred meters of their target site. That's unprecedented. And then I made one more update of February 2024, which was the Intuitive Machines private company paid for by NASA, landed in closer to the South Pole than ever before, so further south than the Indian mission, and that's 80 degrees south, earlier this year. So that's a good summary of where we've been on the moon. Of course, the crewed missions of the Apollo were the crewed. The rest of these are technology missions, of course. And why am I emphasizing the South Pole? Because we're getting more and more activities coming towards the South Pole. So what's so special about the South Pole? And these 2 pictures show you. So the one on the right is the North Pole. The one on the left is the South Pole. And you can see there are a number of large craters in the South Pole, some of which are permanently shadowed, which means that the H2O ice, which is present inside those craters, doesn't sublimate. It doesn't turn into a gas due to the impact of the sun, but rather stays in ice form. So why do we want ice? If we are sending crews to the moon to live there, we need water. All known life needs water, humans included, as well as oxygen to breathe. Okay, that's life support. But another critical resource available in water is hydrogen. That's a fuel, of course. So burning hydrogen in oxygen is a standard kind of rocket fuel choice amongst the different ways in which you can launch a rocket. So basically the H2O molecule is a very useful one, and one that people will need. And hence our activities on the moon are going to be focused around the South Pole. So the activities that are planned with humans living in permanently crewed research stations are all planned for the South Pole. Let's zoom in even further. So there on the northwest crater or the Shackleton crater on the northwest side is the lunar South Pole. That's where the lunar South Pole is positioned. And now you can see why there's a lot of ice in these permanently shadowed craters, because this is quite a treacherous terrain for landing on. But obviously there are flat regions. And this is the region where both the US and partners and China and Russia and partners are planning to set up permanently inhabited research facilities. So finally, we're going beyond Earth orbit. This is super exciting that we're going to see it in our lifetime, not only in our lifetime, but in the next few years. This is the location where people are going. So India got first to the southernmost point on the South Pole that I indicated on the map. NASA is planning to send crews, let's see, with Artemis 3 2026. Let's watch with curiosity how the astronauts that are currently in the International Space Station come back. Will they come back in their Boeing Starliner, or will they come back in a Russian or a SpaceX vehicle? That remains to be seen. Will the challenges that the Boeing launch vehicle has faced impact the timeline of the Artemis mission? This remains to be seen. But either way, I think all of us that are alive, and for those of you even younger than me, you will be very excited that this is happening now, because it's been a long wait. I think there are many engineers about to retire who got involved in space because they were excited about exploration, who've literally waited their whole career, and only now we're going back to the moon. So for those who are young, be excited, be enthusiastic. This is really a new era for space exploration. And we are lucky enough to be alive to be seeing it happening now. So it's not only the US and partners who are planning permanent bases on the moon. There is the China-Russian collaboration planned for 2028. So I think these dates are subject to revision, although China is very good at keeping to schedule. So let's see. But we could indeed see people return to the moon before 2030. And not only that, but permanent crewed research stations being built. So As far as I know, South Africa is in fact a signatory on both of these projects, both with the US in terms of relaying signals from a location in South Africa, Matjiesfontein, where we're building equipment to assist with the Southern Hemisphere support of the Artemis program. Also, South Africa has signed with China and Russia to be a participant in the construction of the International Lunar Station. So this is an interesting time for geopolitics, but also for space exploration to see how this pans out. So the moon is quite a big place. In fact, its area is similar to Africa. So Africa is quite a big place. That's the moon. But interestingly, everybody's going to the South Pole. So it remains to be seen how that's going to work out with all the current trade embargoes, etc., ongoing. But I think as Africa, I think our best current trajectory is to partner with both sides at the moment, which we seem to be able to do so far. So what about further than the moon? What announcements have been made? Now, SpaceX has announced at some point that they plan for crews to Mars not earlier than 2029. So I don't think it's going to be 2029, but it's not going to be earlier. So we can almost assume that the Mars program would follow the moon in the 2030s, but that remains to be seen. China has announced that they would send crew to Mars in 2033. China's not big on marketing. They don't normally announce a lot about their programs. So I personally would think that this is a date to watch. China may well stick to this date, and all other plans to go to Mars should position themselves around this 2033 announcement by China. Let's see. They have had an extremely impressive series of planned and implemented missions to the moon. So I would not be surprised if China does stick to the 2033 date for delivering the first crew from Earth to the surface of Mars. And now we can see the other countries participating. So the United Arab Emirates announced in 2017 that they had a 100-year plan to build a city on Mars. And I think if anyone can build a city in a desert, the UAE can do it. So this is a really interesting group of countries, a growing group, right? Because we know the US and Europe and Russia has been involved in space, but seeing India and the UAE and other BRICS countries like China really rising to the foreground in space exploration, I think makes a really interesting landscape to watch. But by the end of this talk, we'll see my conclusion about how we should go, and we'll get there. I'm not sure that competition is going to be as beneficial as collaboration when it comes to the grand visions for our lifetimes. But we'll talk about that a bit in a moment. So where do we come from? When we try to understand the origins of life, when we look into the molecules that make up living systems, we see that we are all one. The hydrogen that forms the universe, that forms stars, also forms our bodies and all living creatures. The DNA that forms the information systems that transfer knowledge from one generation to another is not only in humans, but in all animals, all plants, and all microbes. We are all one in this universe. Where are we going? As living systems, we are very excited to explore. And while life on Earth is one big, sometimes happy family, we would love to explore beyond Earth to understand, are we alone? Are there other life forms out there? Perhaps life on Earth, in fact, comes from somewhere else. And so exploration, I think, is driven by curiosity. Big questions like, is there life out there? Can we survive beyond Earth? Can we expand beyond Earth? These are questions we ask. But perhaps the most important question we can ask is, how will we get there? We can dream, but now I think is a time for action. It's a very important time for life on Earth. And I know we see a lot of uncertainty, we see a lot of conflict, we see a lot of divisions, we see a lot of uncertainty and fear about the future. But I think we should all remember, and perhaps all of us here do know, that there's another side to this story, that this is a really important time for Earth, where we will demonstrate that collaboration is more powerful than competition, and that working towards a positive future for everyone is more important than working towards a positive future for a few. So let me return to the conclusion of how we will get there at the end, but let's run through some practicalities first. And I'm seeing your questions streaming in, so we'll get there. So I showed that inspirational video about Mars One, right? There were at least 100 people because we heard about it and we applied, but maybe some of you were thinking you would also volunteer to go to Mars. We heard about the project, we were super excited. And then in 2019, the Mars One project declared bankruptcy. So for some people, they thought that's the end of the Mars ambition, but this is of course not true. One startup declaring bankruptcy is not the end of human dreams by any means. So immediately after the Mars One project declared bankruptcy, I founded Proudly Human, because I think it is really a part of being human to be curious. And when we look up at the night sky and wonder what is out there, space exploration is a natural extension of that curiosity that we are born with as children, and that as adults we, build increasingly sophisticated technology to be able to explore further than ever before. So let me play this 1-minute clip on Proudly Human to give you a bit of an idea of what the organization is about, and maybe spark some ideas of participation from some of you who are here today.
I want to go to Mars because, to me, the allure of the unknown has always felt far more powerful than the comfort of the known. Thank you for your attention.
Proudly Human's Off-World project is a series of habitation experiments in the most extreme environments on the planet, to prepare for life on the Moon, Mars and beyond, and to improve standards of living on Earth. During each experiment of several months, a carefully selected team will arrive in an isolated location, build infrastructure from scratch, run projects, and live as a community while participating in making a documentary series. Do you have the right stuff? We are looking for resilient people with diverse expertise, a passion for adventure, and a story to tell. Apply now to join our off-world community.
When we allow ourselves to dream, when we believe in our dreams, and more importantly, when we take active steps towards achieving those dreams, that it becomes possible to create a proudly human future, whatever planet we're on. Thank you very much.
So maybe some of you are thinking to apply.
I want to go to Mars because
are thinking to apply for the project. I hope the video is still working well, because I'm going to talk you through a bit about the Off-World project now. So what I'm playing now is some miraculously high resolution footage, which if you know this location that's currently displayed on the screen, you'll know where this is. But I think it's absolutely amazing that we have developed the camera technology, the propulsion technology, the space transfer technology, the landing equipment to deliver a camera to the surface of, okay, this is Mars, to be able to send us back footage in this resolution. I mean, we can almost picture ourselves there. We can really picture ourselves there. And so part of the inspiration for the Proudly Human Off-World project was to look at locations on Earth that resemble some aspects of Mars. And I'm going to just lower the volume because I want to talk through these. I want to leave nice time for discussion, so I'll take another 10 minutes or so. But look at how similar this landscape in Namibia is to the surface of Mars, and that's coincidental. So both Mars and Namibia used to host oceans on their surfaces. So those bubbles that we see in the rocks, both on Mars and in Namibia, are actually the remnants of that ocean. Namibia has been a desert for 50 million years. So over 55 million years ago, there was water there. Now there's no water. And water management will be at the key, at the heart of a community that's able to survive in those circumstances, whether we're on Mars or in Namibia. Water management is going to be critical in these kinds of environments. And I think no matter where we are on Earth, looking at water management strategies is going to be critical. And planning for Mars, what a better way to prepare for water scarcity on Earth than thinking about, the most efficient water filtration systems that we can develop, whether it's for off-world or on. So we can look at water management in dry areas like Mars or the Namib Desert, which is the oldest desert on Earth, actually, one of the oldest deserts on Earth. Or we can think about the cold. Okay, Mars is negative 60, so it's worth on Earth taking a trip down to Antarctica, because there the average temperature is in winter negative 60. Perfect for training for Mars in terms of the equipment that we need to maintain. Okay, this vehicle was very well suited for this kind of terrain. It was a bit scary to drive in Antarctica, but they managed to let me take the vehicle. So what a beautiful experience to understand the kinds of people who work here, how they deal with power, how they deal with water, how they deal with food, how they deal with communication systems. And this is summer in Antarctica, obviously, so it looks quite pleasant. You could even go swimming. And there's a lot of rock exposed because Antarctica is not frozen all year round. But this is a camp in Antarctica which I had the chance to visit. These are all location scouts. So the Off-World project has not yet come to fruition. We are looking for the right broadcasting partner. So we've had various international broadcasters being acquired by other companies. Anyway, we're in discussion. And when the right agreement comes along, we will launch the project. So we've looked at the desert where water management is key. We've looked at Antarctica where, Antarctica is arguably closer to what it will be like on the moon than any other place, what it will be like on Mars than any other place. So to get to the moon takes about 3 days. You can come back as long as your rocket is prepared. To get to Antarctica, it is a flight from Cape Town, if you have the budget to afford the flight from Cape Town. But then you cannot leave. So during the winter in Antarctica for 9 months, you are essentially isolated there. No boat can arrive because it's iced all the way around the continent. No plane or co-pilot or pilot can be expected to arrive there in the dark with 300-kilometer-per-hour winds. So once you're in Antarctica for the winter, I was there in summer, just for a week. If you're there in winter, you're there for the whole year. And you can't leave. So this is arguably a more close comparison to living on Mars than the moon, because the moon's only 3 days away and you have constant communication with Earth, line of sight communication with Earth, right? So Antarctica is a really interesting place to look at the community dynamics and do research towards communities living in truly isolated environments. So perhaps the last environment we will consider in the Off-World project is underwater. This is just me swimming in the water, but I went to then visit the base. So out there, 10 kilometers off the coast, is the Florida International University facility, which is 10 meters under the ocean, built in the shape of the space station. So as an analog to the International Space Station. And they have crews of 6 people, like the International Space Station, living underwater. We're going to see what that looks like in a moment. I didn't get to visit the 10 meters under the ocean facility because there were astronauts living there at the moment training when I was there. But you basically dive down the 10 meters in the water, you'll finally see the habitat. And that's the research station. So astronauts do train there. As a simulation for the space station, it's similar in many ways. You have to suit up to go outside. You can't breathe the air. You need to monitor all of your air production systems, etc. So living underwater is also a very interesting component of preparing for life beyond Earth. But I hope in all of these discussions that you have seen that the kind of technology we need to live beyond Earth has in fact got many important and powerful parallels with the kinds of systems we need to develop here on Earth. And as someone living in Africa and as someone dreaming about exploring beyond Earth, I think addressing both of these things, access to basic resources, is critical, because a community of humans, whether they're living in some part of Africa or some part of Earth or on the surface of the moon or Mars, are going to require the same infrastructure: power systems, water systems, food systems, and communication systems. This is the basic infrastructure required to have a functional community. And this technology all basically exists. So what are the barriers to us going to live on the surface of Mars? It's not technological. In terms of power systems, we have modular nuclear reactors, we have biofuel cells, we have solar panels, we have batteries, and I think this array between biofuel, between solar, and between nuclear gives enough redundancy for a population living beyond Earth. Of course, nuclear fusion would be the holy grail, but exciting developments are happening on that front, but not yet. So nuclear fission can be used, nuclear batteries, nuclear heating units, solar power, as well as biofuel, because of course humans are always producing wastewater, and one application of wastewater is indeed to produce biofuel, which can then generate power in order to purify water, etc. A closed loop system. Then the agriculture, of course, requires water, requires lighting from the power, and IoT systems or sensors monitoring the conditions, so the humidity, the temperature, the air components, the water components, the growth of the plants themselves, can all be managed in a data system such that, this is the life support system. With information and all of these fundamental resources, we can support communities of humans, whether we're looking at informal settlements like outside Johannesburg, or whether we're looking at a city on Mars. The basic requirements are the same, of course, with a shelter to house all of these different components. So I would argue that all of the technology we need to live on Mars already exists. Living in the space station is much harder. than living on the surface of Mars, for example, because on the surface of Mars, we have access to resources from the sand, from the rock, from the air, whereas in the International Space Station, we have to bring all of our own equipment. So we are ready technologically to live on the surface of the Moon or Mars. What are the unknowns that are remaining? I think these are largely in terms of the human dynamics, and maybe we can go into that in the Q&A. I think that's the most challenging part of expanding our society beyond Earth will be the community dynamics, because I can argue that the equipment already exists. So what's holding us back? But in order to, and let me just switch back here to the slide that Proudly Human imagined of what is necessary to explore beyond Earth. Sorry, one more. Desert regions can show us how to manage water. Polar regions can show us how to manage lack of heat. Ocean regions can show us how to manage a lack of air. The moon is actually an extremely harsh place to train, and because it's only 3 days away, it's a resource that we need to utilize before we think about that 6-month journey to Mars. So let me skip back. What is happening on the moon, and what does Africa have to do with it? So we are really excited, and this is kind of an internal announcement. I think this video might be posted online. So it's a pre-announcement to say that at the Foundation for Space Development Africa, we are really excited that we have been shortlisted with a potential launch partner to take our telescope, our radio telescope array from Earth to the surface of the moon, in fact, at the South Pole, to become the first instrument of its kind, as well as Africa's first moon mission in the next few years. So we'll actually find out whether we are part of the payloads at the end of September, but everything looks good. We've been collaborating well with the teams from the launch partner. And so watch the space, fingers crossed. Africa's first moon mission could be announced later this year by the Foundation for Space Development Africa. So we're really excited to have a wide bunch of collaborators in our network. We have the South African Space Agency, we have the space agencies from Ghana, Botswana, and Kenya, also endorsing supporters of our project. So we really want this to be a source of inspiration for the whole continent, especially the young people in Africa who are wondering, I want to launch a space mission, but I don't have billions of dollars, right? We don't have billions of dollars either, and we want to demonstrate that it is possible. So let me tell you a bit about the Africa to Moon mission, because we need to train at the moon before we send all of our stuff to Mars. It's even further, right? The moon is an ideal place to test and to prototype and to design for an even further mission beyond. And there's another reason why we want to do radio astronomy from the moon. If we look at this plot, Earth's atmosphere basically blocks waves that are longer than 10 meters. So this is opacity on the left. So it's completely opaque. Earth's atmosphere is completely opaque to signals with wavelengths longer than 10 meters. So in fact, it's around 30 meters where we cannot see anything from the surface of Earth. So for frequencies less than 10 megahertz, we need to have devices or instruments or equipment beyond Earth's atmosphere that can look at these frequencies. So the plan for the Africa to Moon array is to have a series, array of balls. So each ball looks like the picture there. 3 orthogonal loop antennas are the ones that receive the radio signals. They roll on the surface and they face any direction. It doesn't matter. They are able to do radio astronomy however they land. The balls are bounced African lunar low spheres because our mission is low cost, low mass, low frequency. And they're each small, so 30 centimeters in diameter, each of these balls. The gray parts you're seeing there are solar panels, so they are autonomous. They have their own power. They have batteries inside and the green electronics, which is hidden behind the solar panels. And together these balls form an array. So you've probably heard of the Square Kilometer Array radio telescope being built in South Africa. So this is almost the next step, taking the first radio astronomy array to the surface of the moon, where we can not only look at the universe below 10 megahertz, but we can also look back at Earth. And this provides us many exciting science opportunities for new science in radio astronomy. So if we are selected by September, I know you will all hear about it. We will be announcing the outcome of that during the month of September. So we are very excited. But I think, regardless of the outcome of the selection of payloads to go to the moon, I think hopefully that even our proposal is an inspiration to others to look for calls for projects, to collaborate widely, even across whole continents if necessary, to make sure that Africa is also involved in the next step of space exploration, because we've seen a lot of the BRICS countries playing a prominent role. But I think it's really up to us to make sure that Africa is playing a role as we explore the extremely exciting places like the surface of the moon and the surface of Mars, which is happening in the next few decades. At the Foundation for Space Development, we're also looking at building stuff on the ground. So we want to build Africa's first distributed supercomputer with an African-owned satellite ground station network, as well as satellites, so that we can maintain open access to a data platform, including Earth observation data, including all sorts of data, whether it's collected on the ground or from space, or for information on the environment, like ocean monitoring, like water monitoring, like agricultural monitoring. This is a grand vision, and I can't do it justice by spending just a few seconds talking about it, but these are some of the projects in the pipeline for the foundation. And I'm excited now to be almost wrapping up. So I've given you a lot of information here, videos, images, but I think my conclusion is that no matter whether we look at where we come from, we see that we are all connected. Right from the beginning of time and space, after the Big Bang, 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the first hydrogen atoms formed. Those same hydrogen atoms are forming 10% of all of our bodies as we sit here, wherever we are sitting. We are all one. Life is one, and in fact, the whole universe is connected through this common hydrogen that we all share. When we look at life on Earth, the only planet that we know of that hosts life, when we look down with microscopes and even deeper into the quantum physics, we see DNA. We see that all life shares DNA. Again, we are all connected. This one molecule that we all share, this double helix, whether we're looking at bacteria or fungi or plants or animals or humans, we all share this molecule. We are all connected. We are all one. So I think there's no doubt that we are all the crew on Earth and that we are one team. And that instead of thinking of ourselves as riders into the unknown, we should look at ourselves as captains of the ship that is riding into the unknown. And we should think about the way that we want our team, which is all of us, to contribute. How do we want to be remembered? What is our legacy? What will our time here on this planet leave for future generations? And for me personally, space exploration is one of the most exciting things, and we all have different things that excite us, and there's no dream that's more important or more interesting than any other dream. All dreams are beautiful, all dreams are important, but for the space exploration one, I didn't find any reference for this, but it's a great proverb that if you want to go far, you go together. And I think Africa is in a unique position to collaborate widely. Perhaps we don't sit in this global divisions as deeply as some other regions do, but for sure we need more representation of us billion and counting people living on the African continent to contribute to the future of humanity. And whatever your personal dream is, I believe in you and I believe you can achieve it. For me, space is really the realization of human curiosity and human exploration and human celebration of the reality that we find ourselves. And this is a picture I took, in fact, on the top of Kilimanjaro. So this is Africa, by the way. This is one of the last glaciers left on the top of, near the top of Kilimanjaro. And I think if the rest of the world is increasingly divided, let's, at least here in Africa, let's collaborate. Let's do things together. Let's go far together. Let's put our mark on space exploration. Let's put our projects forward. There are free rides available, right? Our launch partner now that will take us to the moon was one such call for projects that would be a free ride to the moon if you develop your instrument. So let's make sure that as Africa, we also have representation in the first crews that will live beyond Earth, whether that's on the moon or Mars. And if your dream is something completely different, then I support you fully. Let's support each other. Let's collaborate. Let's work together because we can create a future that we can all be proud of, and we can do it together. And I think that collaboration, that sense of unity, that sense of community is what really makes us human. So let's do it, let's explore, and let's do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Jonah. That was mind-blowing, literally. And I've not had some of the things I've had today, and to just see all the missions, and I can't even believe that some of those things are happening like right here in Africa, like the project in Namibia. Like, it's just amazing to see that we actually have like real space projects going on in the continent, and not just like satellite launches, which are like popular, but to see like exploration also happening in Africa. I think this is like information that we definitely needed to hear. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to open the floor for questions and answers. And if you have any question, just feel free to raise your hand, or you can send your question to the chat box. So we'll just give a few minutes for that. So I'm just going to ask one question while we wait for people to think about their questions, send the questions on the group chat. So considering all the experiences that you've gathered so far in terms of like doing like real life practical missions, physical activity in the industry, and of course you're a scientist, you are all very sciencey right now. There are so many scientists and some young people out there, and some might be on the call, but they feel very disconnected from like the actual work. Maybe they're doing just most like maybe classroom work, or they're just maybe always in the office, and they feel very disconnected from like the real world of like science and science projects, maybe due to the geographical and economic constraints that we see in the continent. What advice would you possibly give to such a young person, just to keep them motivated if they're interested in something like this?
Yeah, I think the first step, and this doesn't apply only to space, but the first step is to believe in yourself. So whether it's some member of your family, maybe your grandparents, or someone who you just think of whenever you need to know who believes in you, you need to believe in yourself. So at some point you need to trust the people who believe in you and believe in yourself. That's important. Secondly, I think you need to collaborate. So you need to reach out, you need to attend events, whether they're online or in person, if you're lucky to have some events in your city or town, or online. Collaboration is absolutely critical. And I think the Africa to Moon project is such a great example of that. So let me just elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah.
We have not raised any money for the Africa to Moon project. Okay, we heard the call for payloads for delivery to the surface of the moon. Then we called on collaborators, right? So we have the South African Radio Astronomy Observatory, which is supporting the construction of the SKA instruments here in South Africa. We have their support. We have the support of the South African National Space Agency, and we've begun to reach out to space agencies across the continent just to, I think to get the work done is one aspect, but for me, it's actually more important than getting the work done. It's to inspire people and give each other hope. You know, everybody's out there on their own, sometimes lonely mission. And so collaborating is not only always to achieve your goals, but also to support the people around you with similar dreams and similar hopes and expeditions for the future. So collaboration is more than just achieving the job, but I think supporting each other in the crazy dreams that we may have. So if we manage to deliver Africa's first mission to the moon, then we can truly say that it was the back of inspiration and collaboration. People are volunteering their time. People with full-time jobs are working late hours. We can see emails coming through at all hours of the night doing, you know, the analysis for this, for that, for the design, prototyping, for the science. So that sense of community is really a strong and really, it really gives me hope for the future to know that, is this how Africa does their first mission to the moon, through collaboration and inspiration? Then I'm so happy to be part of it, really happy that we can do it that way. We don't need to raise $1 billion, you know. So we hope we can be a beacon of hope for other people trying to achieve $1 billion projects without the $1 billion. So that's what we're trying to do. By comparison, NASA's radio telescope array for the far side of the moon is literally a $2 billion project. And at the moment, the Foundation for Space Development has managed to acquire all of the contributions necessary through volunteering. So we're really excited that that is a potential space model. plenty of expertise in Africa. That's not the problem. The $1 billion, maybe not so much. That's more tricky. But the expertise, collaborate. Yeah, I think, believe in yourself, collaborate with others to achieve the goals and also to help others achieve their goals. And make sure that you are contributing to the continuity of dreaming. So we need others to also dream. So I think a large part of what I do is that I don't need to achieve my dreams, but just by showing others that I am working towards them can hopefully inspire others to achieve the dream. So maybe I'm already dead when the first the first Africans join the people walking on the surface of Mars. Maybe I'm already dead, but if I continue to work towards my dream during my whole life, then I know I've done everything I can. So in the end, I think it's simple. Believe in yourself, collaborate widely, and make sure that the future generations can also follow in your footsteps, believing in their dreams just like you did in yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was track record for a long time when you said contributes to the continuity of dreaming. That's an immensely profound statement. We have a hand up, and then we have few questions on the chat, and hopefully we can go through all of them. So Donat, your hand has been up. Please feel free to ask a question, and then I'll read some of the questions on the chat.
Okay, thank you, Miss Neri. Dr. Adriana, I have 2 questions for you. The first one is about the place where are we going to launch our next machine, African machine, to the moon. I want to know the place where we are going to launch it. And the second one is that possible for us to, can I go ahead? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Ahead, so just keep it brief, thank you. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, okay. The second one is that possible for us, for Africa to have his own site, site for to launch satellites and those rockets in the space? Because I think politically it's a little bit difficult, for Africa to do so. Saying that to believe in ourselves, yes, but the thing is, are we really independent to do so, like to have our own NASA or to have our own ESA? That is the question. It's not like that's the main question, because I think people has idea, people are have the technology in Africa. Even if there are some people, even if they didn't go far in school, they have the knowledge which is among those who has been to those great school, space schools. I know that, but do we have really the power to do so? That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Donat. Brilliant question. And maybe you're going to answer that question for me. Are you on mute, Nelly?
Thank you. So I was asking which way you'd prefer. Do you want to take each question, or should we read out some of the questions and then you take all of them, because we have another hand up? So which would you prefer?
Let's do one by one, because my memory is not always good to remember more than one. We'll see how we go.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So maybe you can just take Donna's question, and then I'll try to summarize the question on the chat and then reiterate them.
Okay. Thanks, Donat. Brilliant question. But I think you are the one to answer that question. So let me tell you the vision. Africa has a launch facility somewhere on the equator. We already have space agencies. So the question is, will it be a collaboration of space agencies? So one thing when we're thinking about launch that we need to consider is that equatorial regions are well suited to launch in the equatorial orbits. So we can do polar orbits from further south, but in general, being near the equator is going to be a cost-efficient and a fuel-efficient way to launch things into orbit. So let's pick a site. Where in Africa do we want to establish this launch facility? Because having the kind of regulatory legislative structures in place is a necessary first step. Building satellites and launching those is a necessary first step. But then why stop there? Why stop there? Obviously, we need budgets to be able to build launch facilities, but I don't see any problem with that. I think we should do it. I think we should really do it. I see a future where Africa has some of the major launch facilities on the equator, launching from Africa, providing services to other countries. So at the moment, our mission will be launched from another country, the country that routinely launches to the moon. This is a good place to put your mission if you wanted to get there safely, having a launch partner that reliably launches. So for example, the radio telescope by NASA failed to send back reliable data because it landed and broke one of its legs. Then it was oriented in the wrong direction and didn't charge its solar panels and didn't manage to survive the night. So at the moment, we're actually still in the running to be the first radio telescope on the moon. But there's no reason why we can't be launching from Africa. And I think if there's another meeting set up after this one where people sit together and plan for that, I'll be very excited. We have a lot of stuff we want to launch, so you can count on us as your customers. I think you should do it, Donat. I think you should do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for addressing that, Dr. Adriana. So I just tried to summarize some of the questions. Yeah, so we have from Joshua, where he was talking about the funding. I think he was referring to the Africa to Moon projects, like how it's been funded. I think you spoke a bit about that. Maybe if you want maybe re-emphasize. And then he asked how you can assure people that such projects, especially when it comes to exploration, is not a waste of resources. Right?
That what is not a waste of resources?
Say that, how do you show that, like such projects like the off-world projects, you know, exploration, how do you assure people that it's not a waste of resources?
Okay, I'm just reading here. Well, what resources are we wasting? So the Africa to Moon project is a volunteer project. So I am the head of science and I volunteer all of my time. The head of engineering is volunteering all of his time. The South African National Space Agency and the South African Radio Astronomy Organization and the various space agencies that we have brought in will volunteer their different specific technical capabilities, whereas that's where by that may mean fabrication of certain components. That may mean test facilities, which we do have in South Africa, probably some other African countries too, test facilities to do space readiness testing. In the 1980s, South Africa built some impressive infrastructure in that respect. So if anyone else is looking at testing different components, I think we should collaborate and share resources. A launch facility is really what we're missing here because that's the last link. But I think people nowadays may give up too early because they think they need to raise the money first. And all we want to do, I'm not telling you not to raise the money first. I feel like I can be open with you guys here. I'm not telling you not to raise the money first. I'm just saying if you don't raise the money, start anyway. Start anyway. Collect the people, collect the expertise, do the design, do the planning. Because if you don't believe in your dream, then who will? And eventually you collect enough people with enough inspiration, with enough power behind your project. Just the idea has so much power that it happens. This is a way of doing things, and maybe we can tap into that more than someone who's born in a more developed country who would go through the traditional funding mechanisms. You know, NASA already owns space in North America, whereas in Africa, we're still very fluid. We still have a lot of flexibility. So let's work together and jump through all the hoops, break through all the barriers. I know I'm speaking very generally here, but I'm just trying to inspire. And like, if we do get Africa's first mission to the moon, then that is proof that my theory was correct. So watch the space. Oh, you muted. I can see talking now. You muted, Nelly.
I think it's becoming a thing. Thank you. So we have two hands up. So Deborah and Emma-Beth, just be brief, ladies. And yeah, so we're just taking that order. Deborah, then Emma-Beth, and yes, and then we'll take Darius' question.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Thank you very much. What I wanted to know was when you introduced the 100 people that were supposed to be going to Mars. You mentioned something and you said it's now bankrupt. So I wanted you to expatiate on that emotion of feeling like all hope was lost, and then especially when you're trying to follow a dream and it feels like there's no way, there's no headway. How do you pick yourself back up? How do you express that feeling? How do you move on despite all the orders and the obstacles? How do you know there's hope to continue to push on? So that's my question.
Nice question. Thank you. Yeah, thinking that you're going to Mars and then hearing that the company that was going to take you there is bankrupt was a very big disappointment. So a lot of people thought it was a joke, but some of us completely serious. So thank you for addressing that. But the way I dealt with it, because I've been dreaming about space exploration since I was a child. So for me, it felt natural that I would move to Mars. And when the company declared bankruptcy, I realized, oh, we cannot rely on others to implement our vision for the future. So that was a really important learning curve to know that anybody can start a startup. Anybody's startup can go bankrupt. So maybe that partially informed our model now, which is a non-profit, non-financial model actually, which runs on the fuel of pure inspiration. It might sound crazy, but let's see if we manage to do it. So I immediately established Proudly Human, and Proudly Human relied on partners. So all of the solar panels, all of the biofuel cells, all of the water filtration systems, all of the agricultural systems, all of the communication systems, all of the different components that I've showed different aspects of would have been sponsored by technology companies who wanted to test their equipment in extreme environments. So this is just an example of the kind of trade relationships you can establish where you don't necessarily need to raise money first. You need to come up with the idea first. Then you need to inspire other people to contribute to the project in such a win-win way. So for example, the wastewater management system needs to be tested at high temperatures. So we take it to the desert and test it. We provide all the data back to the company as well as testing the unit. You know, these are the kind of partnerships that we established. But this is the practicalities. So I think we have to believe that our dreams are possible. And that sounds like a simple statement, but you know, often when we think of a dream, we think, oh, it's just a dream. But I want to hopefully convince you here this evening that a dream is not just a dream. A dream is a potential reality. And once you've seen it, it's your responsibility to pursue it. And I've seen the dream of humans exploring beyond Earth. I've seen the dream of people living peacefully on Earth. I've seen the dream of doing both. I've seen the dream of living with resource efficiency such that everybody has enough power, enough water, enough food, communication systems, information in order to do what they want to do to achieve their dreams. This future is possible. Don't let anyone tell you it's not possible. It is totally possible. And the more of us that hold it in our minds, the more possible it becomes. So if your dream is to explore space, then there are many ways to get there. And not all of them have to be to go to Harvard or Oxford or whatever school you might think is the best. Not all of them involve working for NASA or SpaceX or China. Some of them involve your being implemented. And the only way that you can fail is if you give up. So if running out of money is enough for you to give up, don't do it because maybe you need money. If feeling demotivated is enough for you to give up, go and talk to someone who feels more motivated than you. If you feel like you don't have something to contribute, find a mentee, find a younger person who is inspired by what you have already achieved. You know, I think there are lots of ways that we all know that we can overcome adversity. But I think especially when we're imagining the future, we should not let others create a smaller picture than the one we have in our minds. Let's achieve the biggest possible dream for the future. And whatever that entails, we can make it happen. It might not happen in our lifetimes, but we can make it happen. But great question. I could answer.
Yeah, that was very expensive answer. Thank you, Deborah. That was a great question, and you really steered us to the right course. And very, very lovely answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Adriana. And I'll just allow Emebet to ask the questions now. And I don't think we have any other question on the chat box, but let's just see. But for now, it's just Emebet, and then we can begin rounding up.
And if anybody would like to share something they're working on, then please go ahead.
Hello, am I audible? Maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, Amabet, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Miss Adriana and Nelly as well. My name is Amabet Mahaba. I'm basically from Ethiopia. Now I'm a final year aerospace engineering student in India. So basically, I get some opportunity even to be a part of Indian Space Research Organization for the last 2 months. One thing I really get from the experience which I have had is really space exploration is not like easy task, and it's really game changing. So as African, having such a kind of project is such inspiring, and I'm so incredible, and I'm so thankful for this. So my question is basically, is Ethiopian Space Agency is a part of other space agencies in Africa? So if not, what can we do as Ethiopian and as Africans to be a part of this? Another question which I have is there any specific education background or any specific course which you guys need to be a part of Africa to the Moon? So I just want to know. And another question I have is, what is the feasibility of this African to the Moon project? Is there any clear feasibility, like be a part of this project, or there is any feasibility which we can be achieved within 5 years or 2 years? We can achieve this if there is a clear information regarding this. If so, just clear it up. Thank you very much. This is all I want to ask.
Thank you, Amabet. I hope I heard everything clearly. The line was not completely clear, but congratulations on finishing up your studies. Was that aeronautical engineering or science that I heard? Congratulations. And are you from Ethiopia? I heard. We are engaging with the Ethiopian Space Agency. If you have any connections there, then feel free to get in touch. Let me actually share my email address with everyone. Well, let me not type it, but feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I think I will check my LinkedIn regularly today and tomorrow. So if you want to chat, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can send me any questions, or I can share my email address on LinkedIn, Adriana Murray. You should find me there. And then the feasibility. So yeah, across Africa, we would like to partner as widely as possible. So if you have anything in your mind that you think might be relevant, whether it's a personal level or an organizational level, then please reach out. Really, collaboration is at the fundamental core of what we are doing, at the heart of what we are doing. So let's connect, let's share details, and maybe either now or in the future, we could collaborate on something. Certainly the Ethiopian Space Agency is very active, and we would love to conclude that partnership, which we are working on. In terms of the feasibility, so the launch date for our potential launch would be 2028. So at the moment, we have completed the design and the science case. So next we will be doing the prototyping and the testing, etc. Then the manufacture, then the shipping to the, I don't know if Donut will have the launch facility ready for us by 2028. So otherwise we'll have to ship it off continent. But in the future, maybe not, maybe not. So yeah, we look for collaboration, especially on the science side. So especially when the instrument is on the moon, what will we do with the data? Especially we are also looking for contributions on how we will get the word out. So each and every one of you are already informed about Africa to Moon. If we get the go ahead, we would like everybody who knows about it to just share the word. We would like to get Africa to Moon projects within the school syllabus. So what we imagine is that 500 million children living in Africa can look up at the moon and feel some sense of inspiration and belonging, to know that there is a camera on the surface of the moon, not only looking in the radio frequencies, but also taking pictures of Earth, taking pictures of Africa and sending them back to Earth. So this is a project with unlimited potential. I think it's going to be a source of a springboard for future projects. So on the side of spreading the word, on the side of education, on the side of getting it into classrooms, getting it into universities, getting it into businesses and governments, yeah, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. My name is there as my name. But yeah, thanks for the question, Emma Beth. I hope I heard it all clearly. Congratulations on your near completion, and hope to receive some communication from you on further ideas. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Adriana. I think Dara's question, I'm sorry I skipped that, but Dara was asking about postgraduate studies and scholarships. We've sent some options on the group, on the chat, but if you have more, that would just be great for us to hear more. Yes.
Yeah, so my questions are always like not what you were looking for, probably. So let me answer that one with another one you weren't looking for. So as introduced in the beginning, I'm not actually the founder of the Africa to Moon. Carla Sharp, who was the woman next to me in the photo, she's the founder and the creator of the idea. She's an economist. Okay, she's an economist working with the Square Kilometer Array Radio Telescope for many years, listening to engineers all for 10 years. He came up with the concept for the telescope on the moon, which nobody else has come up with. Okay, so that's the beginning of my answer to the question of what expertise do you need. Okay, I'm a quantum biologist. So I studied the molecular components of photosynthesis to understand how life works. And then I got interested, I was always interested in space, but then interested in aliens, right? What kind of photosynthetic organisms may exist on the moon? What kind of life may exist below the ocean in Europa? So the answer to that question is you can be a quantum biologist, you can be an economist, you can be a psychologist, you can be a mediator, you can be whatever you want to be. If you see a place for yourself in a space exploration project, then there is a space for you. The first step is to see yourself there.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
The step is to find collaborators. So people who need your skills, people who have different skills to you. And so there's almost a joke like Carla is the head of the Africa program for the Square Kilometer Array Radio Telescope. She's an economist looking to impact positively lives in Africa. I'm a quantum biologist looking at life on Mars. So what do you get when us two sit together and talk for hours? Africa to Moon. It's not Mars, but it's hard to and it will impact Africa because
it will about collaboration and
Totally.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just before we round up, I just have maybe post webinar announcement to make, and then we are done for the evening. But before I do that, I don't know if you have any parting words for some of the young people joining us and the young professionals, any parting words for them in handling the career difficulties from all your experience, of course, doing this really tough, literally off-world project, and how would you encourage them in handling their own career difficulties?
Yeah, I really believe strongly that the first step is believing in yourself. And I think we are born believing in ourselves. So when you doubt yourself, just go back to how you were as a child, asking questions out of curiosity, asking with innocence and exploring with an open mind. Because it's only when we grow up in society that we start to believe the untruths that we are told, that that's too difficult, that's not possible, that's not going to happen for you, that's not right for this time. No, we are not born like that. We are born believing in our dreams, and let's try to remember that through our whole lives. Let's try to stay childlike in our questions. Let's try to stay childlike in our love of life, in our belief in each other, in our open-mindedness, in accepting everyone's dreams and supporting each other's dreams. And that came off without preparation, but let's believe in the continuity of dreams. Let's believe in the dreams of our ancestors. Let's believe in our own dreams, and let's make sure that the people that come after us can also work towards achieving their dreams with our support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Adriana. Thank you for your time. And I know you're still in the outdoors, so I hope you're able to just wrap up and go inside in a warmer place. Thank you so much for the sacrifice and just speaking with us and sharing all this helpful information with us. And it's so good to get firsthand information on what Africa to Moon Project is doing. And we are rooting for you for September. We'll keep our ears out online. Yeah, finger crossed. I'm really, really rooting that it goes well with African to Women Project, and we'll be glad to support in any way. Thanks for sharing your email as well. So thank you very much, our participants. And if you want to reach out to Dr. Adriana for any reason, you want to ask questions on the Africa to Women Project, feel free to reach out to her and connect and follow on LinkedIn as well. So from our end, our next webinar is going to be on 27th of August. And we are going to be talking about like bridging space and society through effective space communication. So we have like some people that are experts in space communication, and we're going to have them talk about, you know, it's conference season coming up September, October, November. Young people will be going for space conferences. So there are two sides to it. So we'll talk about how do you communicate, how do you network with other young people if you have a project or a proposal, just the way Dr. Adriana has confidently told us about the Africa to Moon project and explained it so well. How do you do that for your own project for people to understand? We'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about space advocacy, how to communicate space in Africa. So I'm looking forward to this webinar and would like to hear from you. I'm going to send this link as well to the group chat, to the WhatsApp community, and to be sent in your email. Let us know what you think about today's webinar. What did you learn from today's webinar? If you have anything to say to our speaker, feel free to let us know on the WhatsApp community or fill the webinar survey link provided. And don't forget to follow us on social media as well. So thank you so much for your time. Right before you go, as is our webinar culture, we are going to take a picture. So please feel free to take a picture with us. You can turn on your cameras now if you're online, so we can take a picture. And my dear friends that usually help in taking the picture, I don't see any of them online, so I have to appoint a new person to take this picture. Who's here? Okay, everybody put on your video. Billy, Barima, Pius, Precious, Imamba. I don't have to call everybody's name. Please put on your camera so we can take a lovely picture for today's webinar. And yes, we just have two videos on. Let's get more people join us, 2 or 3 more people, and we can have the picture. Mawel, Deborah, yeah, Engineer Aruge, I see you joined us. Welcome. It's good to have you. Joshua, thanks for all the collaborations and the questions as well. Billy, you have to put on this video. Okay, I think we shouldn't take any more time. So I'm not quite sure who's taking the picture. I'll try. Okay. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Just one.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the great questions. Keep in touch.